Boy, what a Monday in Knoxville, Tennessee. Jeremy Pruitt out as head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. It's something that we thought may happen Friday or Saturday. As it turns out, they waited over the weekend. It happens Monday, and there's no other way to frame this. This is one of the darkest days in the history of this program. There's a lot to unpack here. We're going to go as many different angles as we need to. Getting a lot of feedback from you guys, especially you Tennessee fans. And by and large, the message is you're mad for obvious reasons, but the most obvious reason is you're mad because the price that it looks like you're going to have to pay here is maximum, and the reward the whole time on the front end was negligible. There was no big bowl win. There was no New Year's Six game. There was no season that you can hang your hat on, even if things do go south now. There's no memory, in other words, that you get in exchange for what appears to be a lot of NCAA malfeasance. Ethics and procedure are two words that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. I know if you guys listened to the press conference in Knoxville today with the chancellor and the president and Phil Fulmer, I know that you heard a lot of talk about ethics and ethical violations, and we're going to do things ethically. Listen, when you got a bunch of folks in a room and you got a microphone in your face, that's how you have to talk, and I get it, and I don't have a problem with it. But let me be perfectly clear. This was not a violation of ethics nearly as much as it was a violation of procedure. And I'm not talking about written procedure, more an unspoken type procedure that just exists in major college football. And if no one else really wants to talk about it, I'll talk about it. So I'm going to get around to that. The important things to note from the press conference today, the first thing was obviously Jeremy Pruitt's out and a number of his staffers are out. There is cause here to fire them. Now, I know, again, at the press conference, it was conveyed that that means we're firing him with cause. We're not going to owe him a dime of this $12 million. The first thing you want to wait on is whether Jeremy Pruitt responds to that. I tend to believe he may. We'll see. I don't think that that's over just because Tennessee says it's over. These things rarely are. Also, Philip Fulmer will retire. He will transition out as the athletic director at Tennessee. That's not overly surprising. I think it was kind of surprising how much of this press conference about NCAA violations today was spent fawning over Phil Fulmer, but whatever. He made sure to further enshrine himself as the legend that everyone at Tennessee agrees that he is. It was a gentle, or maybe a not so gentle reminder today who I am. I'm Phil Fulmer. But by 10 miles, the most important aspect of this press conference today and this entire situation moving forward is now this question. What is the status of this investigation? And Donde Plowman, the chancellor there, was asked about that today. The president was asked, and the answers were as follows. Essentially, the message was, on our end, remember there's kind of a two-pronged investigation going on. Tennessee is internally investigating, and the NCAA has been brought in. They're investigating alongside. Tennessee, for their end, as much as they could talk about, Donde Plowman said, we're close to being finished here. But then she was asked about the NCAA branch of this investigation, and she essentially said, I don't know. And that's the thing. You can have a pretty good grasp on what your timeline is. You have no clue at what speed they're going to work in Indianapolis at NCAA headquarters. So I think immediately as we wait on that, the attention is turning already to, well, what's going to happen? Who's going to be the head coach here? Is there going to be a coaching search? Well, the timeline that's been laid out is you got the athletic director position that needs to be filled. Reason to believe that may move fairly quickly. We'll see. But then the athletic director is going to hire the head coach. And I know that this is going to garner a lot of attention. I don't necessarily even know that I have that at the forefront of my mind right now. I think when Kevin Steele was brought in, it was pretty obvious he was being brought in to fill potentially a few roles. And one of those roles was sort of a contingency plan if they had to fire Jeremy Pruitt. Well, they have fired him. Steele is not the interim head coach. He's been announced as the acting head coach. Could be semantics, could be a little more to that. I tend to believe there's a little more to that. I tend to believe the feeling in the athletic department up there is this is not the finish line that we just crossed. It's the starting line. And this is going to take a long time. It's going to be a winding road. There may be light somewhere way, way down the tunnel, but we can't see it yet. And we certainly can't, paint that picture for any potential head coaching candidates. So I think they brought in Steele, and I think Steele's going to be your head coach there for a while in an interim basis. And to be honest with you, given the circumstances at hand right now, I think that's the best path they have. There are no good paths, by the way. I think that's the best path. So Steele is the man until further notice, in my estimation. Now I want to talk about those words I threw out to you. Ethics and procedure. Okay? There is an NCAA investigation going on. It was revealed today, and it had been speculated and reported already. There were multiple Level 1 and Level 2 violations in play. Level ones are obviously the most serious. These are the kinds of violations that, if they're found to be legitimate, you're losing bowl games, you're losing scholarships, you're losing the ability for coaches to go out on the road. I mean, you're talking multi-year probation. You're talking about the big deal, about as harsh as NCAA sanctions get these days. That's not confirmed to be happening at Tennessee. It's very much in play for Tennessee, which obviously stands to reason is the reason why I don't really think a coaching search that will yield any kind of long-term successful fruit would be able to be executed right now. But I want to get back to these words. Tennessee, there's a lot ethically that you could frown at with all this, but I want to tell you what this is really about. This is not about ethics. Tennessee, when it comes to the standard, when it comes to how things operate in college football, they were not horrible ethically. In a lot of ways, they were doing what other programs do. They were horrible procedurally. That's what happened here. It was pure amateur hour with how Jeremy Pruitt chose to run his program. There are ways to go 82 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour zone. There are ways to do it and not even be frowned at. There are ways to do it where people will not bat an eye because everyone else is driving the same speed. But man, I'm telling you, when you don't do it the way you're supposed to, and you choose to handle things internally, and you choose to do things that put a ton of exposure and risk on yourself, this is what can end up happening. And this is one of the main reasons, and many reasons, why I do not believe in handing over the reins to a major program to a coach that has zero experience running a program. I know it's paid off at Georgia. I know it's paid off at a place like Oklahoma. I know it's paying off right now at Ohio State. I could throw 100 examples in your face to counter that where folks were in over their head. And my point is, you don't have to take the chance if you're a major program. You don't have to. Like if you're Miami of Ohio, maybe you need to take the chance. I don't think Tennessee does. I don't think major programs need to take that chance. Some of them have. It's worked out. I still stand by my philosophy. That's the way I'd run a program if I were the athletic director. Tennessee chose to go in a different direction, and as a result, procedurally, they were horrible here. Now, you'll notice I have not given you any specifics. You won't have to wait long for that. I've been in communication with some people who have been very close to this. It is not my information to give you is the point. If I just had the information and I had done all the legwork and investigating, well, I just throw it out there on the next episode of Late Kick Live. It's not my information to give you. It is theirs. It will be delivered to you in due time. I don't think that's very, very far down the road. But when you finally get the details in your lap about exactly what it is we did, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I want to know, well, these level 1 violations, level 2 violations, what exactly does that mean? When we get down to the nuts and bolts, what did we do? Where did we go wrong? Who did this wrong? Who did that wrong? Which recruits were involved? When you find out all those details, you're going to look at it, and hopefully you'll remember this video and you'll remember exactly what I'm telling you when I say this was not an ethics deal. I don't think you're going to look at anything Tennessee is found guilty of and say, oh man, I'm repulsed by this from an ethical and moral standpoint. You're not going to look at it that way if you know anything about college football. But you will look at it and you'll say, how stupid could we possibly have been? And that to me is the most disappointing aspect. The chancellor and president were asked at the press conference today, what do you think the lasting legacy of the Jeremy Pruitt era will be here? And my lasting impression is any kind of potential was stunted from the beginning by the complete and utter incompetence of how to run a program. Jeremy Pruitt's a phenomenal football coach. Jeremy Pruitt was ill-equipped to run a program, and that has now borne itself out to be very obvious to everyone involved and everyone looking on. Look, we'll have a lot more on this. There will be a lot more information that comes out about this, so keep it locked on 247sports.com, vols247.com, and check out Late Kick and subscribe here to the 247 Sports YouTube channel for all the latest.